Have you ever sat by the phone, staring at it, just hoping that your child might call or even send a quick message? Have you ever wondered how you went from raising them with all your love to feeling like you're now a stranger in their life? If that sounds even a little familiar, I want you to know you're not alone. This is one of the quiet heartbreaks many parents silently carry, especially in our later years. When your adult child stops talking to you, it can feel like grief, but with no closure. It's confusing, painful, and sometimes downright paralyzing. You might ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Or, how do I fix this? And while those questions are natural, the answers aren't always simple. In today's conversation, I want to talk with you heart to heart. Not to blame, not to dwell, but to explore some possible truths, to offer you a sense of peace and maybe, just maybe, open the door to hope and healing. Let's talk about what their silence might actually mean, and more importantly, how you can take care of yourself through it all. Now, when a child goes silent, whether it's been weeks, months, or even years, your first instinct might be to dig through your memory and try to find the exact moment it all changed. Maybe you're thinking back to a conversation that got too heated, or a holiday gathering where tensions ran high. Maybe you can pinpoint a disagreement, or maybe you honestly have no idea what went wrong. And that uncertainty? It's often the hardest part. But here's what I want to gently suggest. Silence doesn't always mean rejection. Sometimes silence is just pain wearing a different outfit. Our children, even as adults, are still human. They carry burdens, insecurities, traumas, and emotions that they don't always know how to express. Maybe they were hurt by something you said without realizing it. Maybe they're going through personal struggles, relationships, finances, health, that have nothing to do with you. Or maybe, just maybe, they don't know how to be close while also trying to assert their independence. I know it's tempting to try to figure them out, to solve the puzzle of their silence. But the truth is, we don't get to choose when or how someone heals, or if they're ready to talk. What we can do, though, is choose how we respond to the silence. That's where your power lives. Not in changing them, but in nurturing your own heart through it. And that brings me to something so important. Respecting the boundaries your adult child may have put in place, even if those boundaries hurt. Maybe they told you they needed space. Maybe they just disappeared with no explanation. Either way, it feels like a slap to the heart. But here's a question I often ask the women I work with. What if the boundary isn't about punishment? It's about protection. What if, in their own way, they're trying to figure things out and just don't have the emotional capacity right now to stay connected? Respecting a boundary doesn't mean you agree with it. It means you're strong enough to acknowledge it and still stay grounded in your love. Because love doesn't always look like contact. Sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes it's space. Sometimes it's trusting that silence doesn't erase the years of connection. It just signals a chapter that needs gentleness. But I know this is where it gets tricky. When your child cuts contact or keeps things surface level, it can feel like you're being punished, or worse, erased. And I get it. You carried them. You raised them. You wiped their tears, packed their lunches, stayed up nights worrying. And now, to be treated like you don't matter? That's a deep ache. So how do you live with that ache? How do you move forward when you're stuck in the silence? The first step is inward. It's self-reflection. And I don't mean beating yourself up or overanalyzing every little moment. I'm talking about real, gentle, healing self-reflection. Ask yourself, have I grown through this pain? Have I allowed myself to process the anger, sadness, or confusion without letting it consume me? Have I taken care of myself not just for my child's sake, but for my own? Because here's the honest truth. If the only reason you want to reconnect is to feel better, or to get them back into your life so things feel normal again, that's not true healing. That's fear talking. And fear rarely leads to healthy reconnection. But when you focus on becoming a healthier, more grounded version of yourself, not for them, but for you start to shift the energy around the relationship. You start to model the kind of emotional maturity that might, one day, invite them back to the table. There's something powerful that happens when a parent says, "I love my child, but I'm not going to chase them. I'm going to love myself enough to heal, to reflect, to grow, and trust that if they're meant to come back, they will." That kind of peace? It's contagious. It ripples outward. I've seen it happen. I've seen mothers who, after months or even years of silence, finally say, "Enough. I can't live in this sorrow anymore." And they begin journaling. They go to a support group. They rediscover joy in hobbies, friendships, even travel. And you know what? Sometimes, just as they start to feel whole again, that phone call comes. That message arrives. That door cracks open. But here's what I want you to hear. Even if that door never opens, your life still matters. Your joy still matters. Your story doesn't end because someone else closed a chapter. You still have so much love to give, to yourself, to others, to the world. So if you're sitting in silence right now, wondering what to do when your adult child won't talk to you, start by looking inward. Respect their space. Respect your own journey. And don't rush. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You just need the courage to stay open and the compassion to stay soft with your own heart. And when the time feels right, and only when it feels right, we can talk about how to reach out again, how to communicate in ways that build bridges, not burn them. But for now, let's stay here a little longer. Let's breathe into the space we've been given. Because healing starts with presence, and you deserve to feel peace, even in the quiet. You know, sometimes the hardest thing about silence isn't just the absence of words. It's the stories our minds start to write in that silence. The late nights where we lie awake wondering, did I fail? Or the birthdays and holidays that go by without a text, where we whisper to ourselves, they must not care anymore. But silence can be deceiving. It's a space where pain echoes louder, yes, but it's also where growth quietly begins. And today, I want to continue talking with you about how to live, breathe, and even thrive through that silence. If you've already started taking care of your heart, even just a little, maybe you've journaled, maybe you've prayed, maybe you've just taken a walk and let yourself cry, then you've already taken a powerful step forward. That right there is strength. Now let's talk about how to go even deeper. Because healing isn't just a moment. It's a practice. And it often starts with being honest with yourself. When a relationship breaks down, especially between parent and child, it's rarely one-sided. That doesn't mean you're to blame. Not at all. But it does mean that we have a chance, a gift even, to look at our part. Not with guilt, but with curiosity, with grace. Ask yourself, were there times when my advice turned into control? Did I try to protect so much that I accidentally smothered? Was I quick to judge instead of slow to listen? None of this is easy to admit, I know. But think of it this way. If you want your adult child to eventually see you differently, to see a version of you that is calm, safe, understanding, then it begins with you seeing yourself clearly too. Not just as a parent, but as a whole person. And here's the beautiful part. It's never too late to grow. I've had moms tell me I'm 67 years old. I thought I'd be done with all this emotional stuff by now. And I always smile and say, the heart doesn't retire, it keeps learning. Sometimes the biggest healing happens in the third act of life. We just have to be willing to step onto that stage. Now, if you're doing the work, really giving yourself time and space to reflect and grow, you might start wondering, when is the right time to reach out? That's a big question, and there's no perfect formula. But I can tell you this, timing is only one part of the equation. The how matters just as much as the when. If you decide you want to reconnect, I encourage you to pause before hitting send on that text or writing that long email. Ask yourself, am I reaching out because I've healed or because I can't sit in the discomfort any longer? Am I trying to force a result, or am I offering a door gently with no expectations? Sometimes the best way to reach out is not with a demand, but with a soft reminder of love. I've seen something as simple as, just thinking of you today. I hope you're well. Carry more weight than a 1,000-word letter, because it respects space, but still lets love through the cracks. Now let's talk about letters. Writing a letter can be deeply healing, for you and maybe eventually for your child. But here's the key. This isn't the place to list out your pain, justify your choices, or convince them to come back. This is a space for softness, for truth, for vulnerability. If you write a letter, focus on these things. I love you. I'm here if and when you're ready. I've taken time to reflect. I understand you may need space, and I respect that. No guilt, no shame, no pressure, just truth and grace. Now, that doesn't mean they'll write back. They might not be ready. They might not know how. And as painful as that is, your value does not depend on their response. You are worthy of peace, of love, and of joy, even in silence. That's why I want to gently remind you. This journey is about more than just reconnection. It's about reclaiming your own peace. It's about rediscovering the parts of you that existed long before you became mom or dad. You are still a whole person, a soul with dreams, memories, laughter, wisdom. This chapter might be quieter, but that doesn't mean it's empty. You get to fill it with connection, with healing, with life. Maybe that's a new friend, or a group you've always wanted to join. Maybe it's music, art, nature, or simply learning how to enjoy your own company again. Because as beautiful as family is, it's not the only thing that defines you. You're allowed to feel sad, to grieve what you thought your relationship would be, but you're also allowed to feel joy, even while it's unresolved. That's not betrayal. That's resilience. And here's the surprising part. When you start living again, not waiting, not chasing, just living, it sends out a quiet message. It says, I'm still me. I'm healing. I'm here when you're ready. And sometimes, that's the exact energy your child needs to feel before they come back. Let your love be quiet but strong. Let your life be full, even if a part of your heart is still waiting. Because you are still here. You are still growing. And that matters more than you know. There's something deeply human about wanting to be heard, especially by our children. When you've poured your heart into raising someone, when you've stayed up nights worrying about their safety, when you've celebrated their little victories and wiped their tears, it's only natural to want connection in return. And when that connection disappears, it can feel like your voice no longer matters. But I want to remind you of something. Your voice still matters. Even if it's quiet, even if they're not listening right now, it matters because it carries love, growth, and wisdom. Let's talk about what to do when that moment finally comes. If and when your adult child does open the door again. Whether it's a short message, a surprise phone call, or a casual check-in, it can bring up a flood of emotions. Relief, excitement, fear, even anger. And all of those feelings are valid. You've been through a lot. But how you respond in that moment, emotionally, energetically, and verbally, can set the tone for everything that comes after. First and foremost, respond gently. Resist the urge to say, "Where have you been?" Or, "Do you know how much you hurt me?" Not because those questions aren't real. They are. But this moment isn't about unloading years of pain. It's about creating a safe space for reconnection. Think of it like a tiny flame. You want to protect it, not blow it out. A simple, "It's good to hear from you," or "Thank you for reaching out, I've missed you," is often enough to keep that little flame alive. Now, if the conversation does continue, or if they're willing to talk about what happened, it's so important to listen more than you speak. That might sound backwards, especially when you felt misunderstood or unfairly judged. But the goal isn't to win the debate. It's to rebuild trust. And trust grows in the presence of understanding, not defensiveness. Try to hear what's underneath their words. Maybe they say, "You always made me feel judged." It's tempting to respond with, "That's not true," or "You're being dramatic." But a softer approach might be, "I'm so sorry that's how it felt. I never wanted you to feel that way. I'm listening." That simple act of validation can be a turning point. It doesn't mean you agree with everything, but it shows emotional maturity, and that goes a long way. Of course, every situation is different. Some children return ready to repair. Others might want a surface-level connection without diving deep, and some may reappear only to disappear again. All of this can be confusing and even re-traumatizing. So here's what I want to say clearly. Your peace does not have to depend on their consistency. Your peace lives in your boundaries, your growth, your inner world. You can hold space for love and protect yourself at the same time. Let's talk about that for a moment. Setting boundaries with your adult child. I know it can feel foreign or even wrong. We're so used to giving. But as you grow older, your energy becomes even more precious. You don't have to accept poor treatment just because you love them. You're allowed to say, "I want a relationship," but not one that is filled with guilt or control. You're allowed to protect your time, your mental health, and your emotional balance. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that support healthy connection. And when your adult child sees you honoring your own well-being, they may, consciously or unconsciously, start to respect that too. It models something powerful. A relationship built not on fear or obligation, but on mutual respect. I also want to say something to those of you who may never get that call, that letter, that knock on the door. I know how hard that is to hear. But you deserve a full, meaningful life regardless. And that's not just some vague motivational line. I truly believe it. I've seen people heal and blossom after years of estrangement. Not because their child came back, but because they decided to stop putting their joy on hold. They started writing again, dancing again, volunteering, traveling, loving, laughing. And no, it didn't erase the pain, but it reminded them that life is still sacred, that they still matter. You matter. You have so much love in you, and not all of it has to go to your child. There are neighbors, friends, strangers who could use your warmth. And most importantly, you need your love too. So if you're sitting with silence today, I want to remind you that you're not broken. You're not forgotten. And you're not alone. This journey may be hard, but you are walking it with courage. Every step you take toward healing, reflection, and grace is a victory. Whether your child returns or not, you are growing. And that growth will ripple outward in ways you may not even realize. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep practicing compassion for them and for you. Keep choosing peace over panic, love over fear, and grace over control. And if this video resonated with you, I want to invite you to share your thoughts or your story in the comments. You never know who else you might help by opening your heart. And if you're finding strength or clarity here today, I'd be so grateful if you gave this video a like and subscribed to Strong Elderly Life. There's so much more we can walk through together. Because no matter where you are in this chapter, you're still writing your story. And I believe, with all my heart, it can still be a beautiful one. Here's to healing. Here's to hope. And here's to living your best life, one peaceful day at a time.